Hey there friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Cassie, and today I have a card that I just made for fun. I am using some Heffy Doodle supplies, and they'll all be listed in the description box down below. This first set is called You're Weird, and here are the matching dies, and I love this set. You can make the moon bigger if you want to, so you can, use that same stamp and stamp it twice, and I'm going to try to do that a little bit, and the die is open-ended, so then you can flip the die around and make a full moon. I'm also going to be using this stencil called Starfall, and I think this is just perfect to go along with our You're Weird stamp set. So I'll pull that out and kind of show you what that looks like. It's just a bunch of stars, all different sizes, and just kind of all over the place. So let's get started with our card. I have some Bristol Smooth cardstock that I am going to tape down, and I cut this down, or I'm not going to tape it down, but I have this cut down to 4 inches by 5 1/4, so it's a little bit smaller than an A2 size card. I'm starting off with some Worn Lipstick Distress Ink. This is the regular Distress Ink, and I'm using my mini ink blending tools. I want to have the moon peeking out, and then I also want that color to just kind of be peeking out behind the moon. So then I'm going to come in with a lighter color, and that lighter color is Spun Sugar. And it doesn't look like a whole lot here. If you look close in person, it does add a little something, so that's why I grabbed that. And then I want to pull in some Hickory Smoke just for a little bit darker shade, and I'm just going to put that all around the edges. I'm going with a Valentine theme here, or at least a love theme. It doesn't necessarily have to be Valentine's, but I wanted to choose the colors pinks and, the pinks and reds from Valentine's Day, but I had to bring in more neutral. So this is where the Hickory Smoke comes in. So I'll just go around the edges, and it's very, very subtle. I'm going to take another piece of cardstock, but this is some watercolor cardstock because I want to do a little bit of water play on this. So I've got that Hickory Smoke again, and I'm just working on the bottom. I'm going to stamp my moon on this cardstock, and then I'm also going to do some flicking on it. So I'm kind of trying to line up, see where I want that moon to be, and then drag down that color. I don't want it to be like a perfect blend. I just want it to be darker going into lighter. I've taken the cap off of my sheer shimmer spritz in the color Pewter, and I've just sprinkled that all over my cardstock. And now I've got some Aqua pigment in the color Pearl. This is by Brutus Monroe, and I love this stuff. It has so much shimmer, and it's basically clear, but it has that shimmer in it. So I added a little water to it as well. So I flicked it just full strength and then flicked it with some water. And now I'm going to do the rest of it on my other background. And then I'm also going to grab out that sheer shimmer spritz again and just flick that all over that background as well. And then I'll set those off to the side to dry just a little bit. But let me show you, now that this is dry, all the sparkle. That's going to be my moon, and that's how shimmery and sparkly it is. I'm going to stick this into my mini Misty and grab out the moon, kind of positioning it where I want the stamp to stamp. I'll close the door of the Misty, and I'm going to grab out my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I'm going to wipe away the bottom part. You wouldn't have to do this if you didn't push too hard, but I tend to push too hard, and I'll show you that when I flip it and stamp it again. So I'm going to flip it around, see if I can get it to, and then I thought I'll just leave it in there, and then I'll move the stamp. So I'm going to grab the packaging from the stamp and stick that down so that way I don't have to clean that stamp. Line it up, and then I'll close the door of the Misty and then move away the backing paper from the stamp and ink it up. And see, this is where I inked it up way too much and then pushed down way too hard, and I end up with a little bit of that residue hitting on the moon. I've put a few of the little craters from the stamp set in there, which I think is brilliant that they did that, and stamped those. And now I am using my Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen in the color Moonlight. Isn't that perfect? I'm just putting that inside the craters, and it does have a little bit of sparkle to it. So that'll be nice for the recipient to get a little bit of extra. I'm going to tape my panel down now that it's dry, and I'll grab the stencil, the Starfall stencil. I'll tape that down, and I'm going to pull out the Nouveau Glimmer Paste in the color Moonstone. Once again, just brilliant name for what I'm doing here. And I'm going to spread that around like butter all over my stencil. Y'all know I am slightly obsessed with stencils and glimmer paste right now. I know that's typically old news, but I can't get over how pretty this stuff is. Stick a stencil down, pop it on there, and you're done just about. All right, but that's what it looks like. It's got this beautiful glimmer and those nice little stars, and then the background is still there. I'm going to ink up my images using some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm so happy I have my beloved Express It cardstock back. I literally used every last piece I had and then got a little surprise in the mail. So I have a bunch more now. I'm so excited. And I stamped that out a couple times. And I'll tack down the die using some washi tape. And washi tape isn't really the best, but this is what I have, and I have so much of it. And you'll see why it's not really the best here, because I'm doing this on watercolor paper, and I push it down, and then I peel that paper away, or peel the tape away, and it tears the moon. It ends up being not that big of a deal, but it is irritating. And so now I'm going to start doing my Copic coloring. I will put the colors up on the screen here in a little bit, but I've started off with my little spaceship. I love this set for a couple reasons. Now, the set's just cute in itself, but it also comes with the die so that you could cut out all those little holes, and you could possibly make this like an interactive card that has light behind it. And I'm thinking that may be my first one if I try to do that, because I love the idea of it. Makes it so easy. Let me talk about my paper a little bit. I have mentioned this before. A lot of people use Neenah Solar White Classic Crest cardstock, and that stuff is great. I have a bunch of that as well, and I like to use it also. But if I had to choose a favorite paper for alcohol marker coloring, it would hands down be the Express It cardstock. It is so smooth, and not everybody will feel the same way about it, but I have done Copic coloring since probably about 2007 or 8, and it is just my favorite paper to use. It is a little bit more on the pricey side, probably not that much more expensive than your Neenah Classic Crest, but I feel like there's a difference in my coloring with it. I just really like it. I feel like the colors blend smoother. The paper itself is smoother. It's such a stark white, and I just love it. All right, now I'm moving on to coloring the lights, and I'm going to use the same color palette. So once you see these colors up there, if I grab that light pink again, it's the same light pinks. So these are the R20 and the R22. And I'm just doing that underneath, and then we're going to grab in some R24 for the lights on the side of our little spaceship, and some R29. And then I'm going to use that same color combo, and I'll start coloring one of the little aliens. Like I said, I was going with a red theme here, reds and pinks. And one of the things I've noticed, I have mentioned this before, with the reds, if you notice there, I did not go all the way to the edge. For whatever reason, the red just wants to bleed. So that is why when I am first putting down my red color, I don't go all the way to the edge. And when I go back in to blend again, that is when I go all the way to the edge. I'll wait to go to the edge until I know that I am happy with my blend. And then that's that. Because if I had started out on the edge, like I said, for whatever reason, I don't know why. I even talked to Copic themselves, and they're not exactly sure why it does that either, but it is the reds that do it. I haven't really noticed it so much with the lighter pinks, but it's those darker reds that do it. So then I'll come in with that same pink that I did before, the R20 and the R22. I'll make my little fuzzy guy that pink, and then I'll blend that out. Kind of want to make him look furry, because obviously his texture on his drawing is a little bit furry. So he's fun. I think they're both fun, cute little aliens. And then I'll bring in this next red combo, which would be my R35 and my R39. So I'll bring that. It's more of an orangey red, that R35. And then I'll come in with the darker R39 for my shading. I'm also going to use that on their little mouths. And then I'm going to color my other little guy here using that color combo. And I start out fine here. I don't even go all the way to the edge on some of it. But then when I bring in that R39 and I'm doing his arm, I go outside the line big time. But I'll show you a way to fix that. You could use your colorless blender, and that will help. They call it a colorless blender because it does blend colors on occasion, but that's not really its real purpose. It can push color back in. Now, it doesn't erase the color, but it will push the color. I'm not going to use that here. I'm actually going to use a white gel pen. All right, and then I'm using the same color combos that I have for his little striped legs. And I don't always blend out the colors either, so I'll leave that there. because if it's a small area, it isn't always necessary. And then I do bring in those W's for his mouth and the other stripe on his legs. So that was W4 and then W6. And I noticed that I didn't get all the way on the red. I will fix that later on his face. I'll bring in the matching dies, and I'm going to tack that down with some more of that washi tape. And because I know that this may tear, I try to keep that washi tape off of the colored image itself. I know that people have had a lot of luck with purple tape. I just haven't bought it yet. So there I fixed the image, and I figured while I had it out, I was going to add a little bit of highlighting. I don't always do this, but I figured those two little aliens looked a little gelatinous, so it would be kind of fun. And I did add some little white highlights to their eyes. I'll grab my ARTEZA foam tape and I'll go behind the moon, and then I'm going to stamp out my sentiment on some black cardstock using some VersaMark ink, and I'll cover that with some alabaster embossing powder. And then I'll heat set that till that is smooth and melted. You will notice a residue behind there. That's because I used a magic powder bag on that first before I stamped out my image. That just simply helps with keeping embossing powder from sticking to where it doesn't belong. I have a very slight matte of black, so I'll stick down my cardstock to that slight matte. I mean, it is very slight. It is just a little bit more or a little bit bigger than my actual panel. And then I'll peel off all the release paper on my moon and I'll stick that down, definitely leaving off some of those areas. And then I'm going to stick this into my Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer, because this I have found is one of the better ways to cut this off, especially if you have foam tape. Just line it up on that edge, and then the guillotine trimmer will take care of the rest. And now we'll get ready to start tacking down the rest of our pieces. I put foam tape behind the sentiment, so it says "Love you to the moon and back." And I'd already adhered all those pieces together just using my Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, so I'll stick that down. And because there is some glimmer paste, I'm putting a stamp block on top of that. My card base is some whitewash cardstock from Brutus Monroe, and I have scored that at 4 1/4 inches. This will be a side folding A2 size card, and so before I put anything on the front, I'm going to do the inside. And I figured rather than keep everything to one side, how fun would it be to have it be just like a continuous? So I'm using my Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink, because those are much better for stamping than just regular distress inks. And I'm stamping the moon down, trying to be careful not to get that smudge like I did before. And then I put down my sentiment, and I'm going to ink that up with some Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide ink. And then the other sentiment that I have, which will say "You're weird, I love it." And then the other one is "I'm over the moon for you." And now I love how fun this is. I'll grab a couple of the little craters and I'll stamp that with this Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink just to complete that moon. I love that they included those. I didn't even think about it. And then I'll tack down my other little monsters using some glue, because I had 2 extra little monsters. And now I have this whole scene on the inside of my card as well, which I always think is so fun. And then I'll use that same glue to adhere down the front of my card. And this is going to finish it off. I love how it turned out. I know it's got that monotone kind of color of the pinks and the reds, but yeah, add a pop of gray, and I just think it's fun. So if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. As I said, everything that I use will be linked in the description box down below. And yeah, I always appreciate you guys leaving love. If you'd like to subscribe, you can just hit my picture and you should subscribe from there. And I also have a couple videos here for you to check out if you haven't already seen them. And as always, I will be back very soon with another video. Bye, everyone.